Yeah, hi. Can I speak with the manager, please?
He is not in today and he won't be in tomorrow. He'll be in Tuesday. Tomorrow's holiday. Can
What?
I transmit his voicemail?
I want to speak to the manager of the hotel. Can I do that?
Sorry, he's not in today. Tomorrow's holiday. He'll be in Tuesday.
Okay. How can I...
Would you like to be transmitted his voicemail?
Voicemail? Sure.
Hold on a second, please.
You've reached the voicemail, Paul McKenzie, the general manager of the Hotel Walcott. I'm unable to take your call. Please leave me a message with your name and phone number, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Actually, you know what? I don't want to leave my own phone number on a live stream, so we're going to have to call back there. But as we can see, I mean, it seems like the Army is no longer here. They left. Let's just discuss this briefly. I know a lot of people might be confused by the thumbnail saying, oh, Jason, why are you putting that there? It's petty, it's beneath you. No, we'll talk about that in a second. But the Hotel Walcott, it's a big story. People saw that was blowing up on my X. If you're not following on X, please do. There's a lot of information being shared on there at JG_CSTT. I just happened to come on to this hotel here on 31st Street a few days ago. Well, there's the original image. But I was just walking by and I saw those two military camouflage guys. It's raining, that's what I was trying to avoid. And it just struck me as odd. I mean, I said to the two of them standing outside there, my first, instinct was that, oh, is the Army turning this thing into a migrant shelter? And if you watch the video, you can see that the Army dude, the black kid, he said no, but the camera was looking at me. So then I say something to him, along the lines of, well, then what are you doing here? And I go like this to turn the camera around, and there's a little bit of a delay where I have to look down and push the button or whatever. So we didn't see him do that. But he said no in response to my question, is the Army turning this into a migrant shelter? Now, he might have said no, meaning they're not turning it into that. It's been that for 2 years. People have pointed out that the thing was used as a migrant shelter for like 2 years. I think maybe October 2022, they converted that. But see, that's not the question. I'm not saying, is it a migrant shelter or is it a military base? My question is just, hey, Army guy at a hotel that I didn't know was being used for anything other than being a hotel, what are you guys doing here? Is it a migrant shelter? He says no. Then his the white kid, the Marine buddy, he says, we're here by invitation of the state. And that's very specific language. Someone told him that. We're here by the invitation of the state. That's got to do with the Posse Comitatus Act. Okay? So then people say, no, they're not in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act because the governor, here's the article where the governor invited them. Right. And I'm not saying I'm a lawyer, but the people who are sending me that stuff also aren't, because I'm getting private messages from lawyers who, a lot of them are the type of people who say, hey, I'm watching what you're doing and I'm interested in it, but I'm in this kind of firm and that kind of firm and I can't. People don't want to show their support for these kind of things that are obviously, oh no, wait, I wanted to show everybody the craziness on 31st Street. Because see, if we've got all this money to pay that guy, and I need to correct this from yesterday because I had made a mistake. It was properly written in the description of the show, but I accidentally said that this guy's last name, this is Frank Califano, Sr., and I gave the wrong name yesterday. That was my mistake. Frank Califano, Sr. He is the CEO of FJC Security. So remember, I happened to cross that building like August 22nd while I was talking about something else. I think the Coast Guard being a circumvention of the posse comitatus. Yeah, because that idiot Nate, who is also relevant to today's discussion, I was talking about how he admits that he works for the Coast Guard, and he is on Twitter engaged in this whole IIA interactive internet activity. This dog is the star of the show. I didn't mean to scare you. Sorry. The IIA internet interactive activity that separate moron Patrick Berge told us about a long time ago, and then did a whole documentary with Millie and that woman Tori. And I haven't spoken to Millie about this directly, but it's my understanding that she figured out that those people were losers who were trying to screw her up. I'd actually like to speak to Millie about that, because as I observe that, the net effect was that her relationship with Alex Jones was destroyed, and that had to affect her ability to earn a living and all that kind of stuff. And that is what I want to talk about today. The social engineering that's going on, right? I mean, they want us to believe that they can pay our buddy there, the former NYPD detective, Frank Sr., they got tons of money to pay his security company to deal with that hotel. But what is going on here on 31st Street? This is a new deal. Homeless people with new looking luggage sleeping in ways that make it clear that they've prepared these conditions. These are not New York homeless people who just sleep on the street in the same clothing they've been sleeping in for months at a time. This is an entirely new wave of homelessness, and it's an incredibly serious problem, particularly as crime grows and the effectiveness of the police continues to diminish, whether that's due to the district attorney not prosecuting crimes reasonably, injustice in the courts, the desire to release violent and dangerous criminals while they continue to try to put Donald Trump into Rikers Island. It's unbelievable. So what I want to talk about today is social engineering. And people who have been watching the show for 8 years or 7 years, we're coming up on 8 years of Crowdsource the Truth. Isn't that a little bit hard to believe? The first videos that I made were happening in, I think, October 2016. I should go back and restore them. People can get them on, many of them, on Odyssey, on odyssey.com. Even when you sign up for free, you get access to that legacy stuff, odyssey.com/@crowdsource the truth. You can also become a member on there. It's the most economical way to sponsor the show. But the point is, these two idiots, and I'm not talking about them because of some internet beef or, YouTube. This is not about personalities and petty quibbling. There have been a small number of people who have contacted me saying like, oh, this image, we've got the Department of Homeland Security censoring this one because I thought, I don't know, maybe YouTube as a thumbnail might not like that. But you can go on to X, people who are following on X, go on there and you can see the original image. It's George and David, the truly psychopathic, in my opinion. These things I'm going to share with you right now, these are my pure opinions formulated from observing public domain evidence that in most cases these individuals put into the public domain themselves. Statements they've made on podcasts, things they've said directly to me, things they've filed in court, things they've posted on their own social media, and accounts that they've deleted now and sued people over. I should direct people to this, but I don't even know if Americans can join this anymore. But this whole thing with that guy, what's his name there, Pavel Durov, right? He is so. Oh yeah, this thing is done basically. Madison Square Garden is new and open. I don't know. It just seems to have taken a long time and not be as impressive as you would expect something like that in New York City to be. For instance, the same people that own Madison Square Garden have created that sphere in Las Vegas. Now, if they recreated a giant sphere right here, that was like, you know, an LED television screen that you could see from all over the place, that would be pretty darn impressive. It's a weird outfit. That lady's like the Grinch who's going to steal Christmas. But it's a little early, not even October yet. Oh yeah, happy September, everyone. And I guess, you know, autumn is here, so although I don't like the rain, it was a really mild summer towards the second half. We had like a week of intense heat, and then it really cooled off. So, you know, this area is open now, and they're trying to make everything kind of like Vegas, it seems. I don't know if that's good or bad. But the social engineering that these guys are doing, it's unbelievable. And the reason I talk about it as often as I do is because I want other people to be able to make up their own mind. I'm not telling you what to think about these people. I'm telling you what I think about these people. You're free to do whatever you want. I'm not telling you not to interact with them. In fact, I'm going to point you to some of their accounts right now that you might not even know about, which will arguably be promoting them. But again, I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm just letting you know this is here. You might consider looking at it. You could formulate your own opinion about it then. You might say, oh, Jason, I looked at that same public domain evidence that you used to form your opinion, and I came to a different conclusion. That's totally valid. But let's talk about it, because it's a network. This is not some stupid petty fight between two people. I was interacting with George Webb for, I think, less than 3 months. It was like May for a day. It was like June, July, and August of 2017, or May, June, and July, and I had told them to get the hell out by end of July, or I don't remember the exact dates, but my point is, people act like I grew up with this guy or created my career with him or something like that. No, it's true, I did encounter him in the very beginning, and I've mentioned many times how I've discovered evidence. Oh, when did this become Blue Ribbon Sushi?
She was like,
that's fancy. Strange to put that here. But anyway, the evidence that I've seen in the public domain, it causes me to believe that they tried to entrap me in a scheme that was intended to get me arrested for an alleged bomb hoax in the port of Charleston in South Carolina. And the reason I suspect they wanted to do that is that if they had succeeded in convincing me to call the Coast Guard and tell them, hey, there is a dirty bomb doing this and that, the Coast Guard would have had a recording of my voice saying whatever kind of stupid prepared message they were hammering at me. There's a dirty bomb, there's crooks on the roof, there's, Lee Harvey Oswald shot, whatever message they want, Kamala Harris is competent to be the president of the United States. This is programming. This is a message that's why people are like, oh, Jason's being a jerk. I want to make my animations and videos say crooks when I show the roof. So fine, I'm not telling you not to do that. I'm just telling you how I feel, and you should make up your own mind about, you don't have to do anything based on that. But if, people are saying, unblock me, or, why aren't you doing this or that? It's like, look, if you want to interact with people who I think are social engineers, you can do that, but it's going to cause me to not interact with you. Because it's going to make me think that you are either getting drawn in by them and going to be a danger to me, or you might be one of them. But whatever it is, I don't know if anybody has ever taken these kind of, when I went to summer camp, they taught me how to swim. I was blessed in that my parents sent me to summer camp, but they had this whole I think it was the Red Cross kind of curriculum for swimming, because one of the things you had to do was this advanced life-saving, where you teach you how to be a lifeguard, basically. It was quite valuable, and I'm not like racing anything or like that, but I'm a competent swimmer because of all this. And one of the things that they taught you is that when you are rescuing someone, if they become sort of out of control and thrashing, they can be a danger to you. And the idea is, if you drown or get into a situation where you're not in control in the water, then both of you will die. And so they taught you certain moves to kind of duck under the water and get away from someone who is sort of flailing and trying to push you under, and to wait a minute far away from them until they calm down and stop flailing and then try to save them. So this is roughly the equivalent of that. I'm just swimming out and saying, hey, there's a riptide coming, and if you continue to swim that way, I might not be able to pull you back. And if you say, that's cool, I'm going this way, I'm not following, and you might find yourself in trouble. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what it is that I see. So let's look at some of it. Okay, because this is another thing, and there needs to be a counter lawfare episode about this. Now, is this movie theater still in business? Maybe. Yeah, it looks like it is. It's not a lot of movies playing there, though. What is playing here? Do you like it that the address isn't encoded 33? Oh, it's witchcraft. That's stupid. You can find that anywhere. Whatever. Maybe that could be just 312. Every street has a 312 on it. It doesn't necessarily mean anything at all. Anyway, the point is, we need a counter lawfare episode about what just happened earlier this week, because my lawsuit against the city of New York, the NYPD, X Corporation, Elon Musk, Adam Sharp, John Doe's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and Jane Doe, unknown assailants presumed to be employees of Twitter or the NYPD, that case got dismissed after almost a year. And that was being presided over by the same judge who I am now referring to as the juvenile Jew-hating jurist, Jessica G.L. Clark. This is a woman who, when the case began, was 39. She might be 40 now. Pretty young to be a judge. But actually, I don't think that numerical age matters quite as much as maturity in these matters. Someone could be 35 and very well prepared for that job. Other people could be in their 60s and still be emotionally unprepared to serve justice and can be corrupt, like Valerie Caproni, and it seems to be also this Jessica G.L. Clark. That's my opinion, formed from looking at her behavior in the public domain. This is a case in which George's brother, as he always does, insisted on interfering throughout. One of the things that he did was he sent a letter to the attorney for the city of New York. He's not in the case. He has no business dealing with these people. He's interfering extrajudicially with my rights to have a fair trial and to access the courts and to just conduct my life unabated. This guy has spent almost every day of the last 7.5 years doing something, harassing me by email, phone, US mail, harassing my parents, harassing anybody who comes on the show, harassing anybody who has me on their show. I mean, even if you think, oh, Jason, this is crazy, George's brother is not some kind of contractor or outside hire or agent of the NIH. He's not working for a private company that contracts to another company that contracts to the NIH. He's not doing that, even though you've presented evidence, even though you saw his name on an NIH staff directory, on an NIH awards ceremony list of recipients. And the day I mentioned it the first time, the next day, the NIH took down the website and it said, access denied. The phone number for the person working there with the same exact very unusual name as George's brother and the same IT skills, that phone number used to have a voicemail for the person with George's brother's name. Now it's ringing for somebody else. This was, over a year ago that this happened, but the point is there's a lot of evidence that George's brother somehow is a contract employee, support person, something or other, to the NIH. And as a result of that, appears that he at least could be. There is the appearance that he might participate in a Department of Homeland Security task force called the Homeland Security Task Force Southeast, which does include the U.S. Coast Guard, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, the NIH, well, through the Health and Human Services, which is included. And all of that, it was great. I heard an interview with Robert Kennedy last night, speaking to that guy, Robert Kiyosaki, and somebody else who I didn't recognize. But I think it was live last night, and Kennedy, for the first time that I've heard, confirmed that, in fact, ChatGPT was correct. The injunction went back in on August the 20th. And see, the reason I'm talking so much about George and his brother is not because of an internet beef. It's because these guys have been the spearhead of a lawfare campaign against me for the past 8 years, and it's been incredibly difficult to fight. I actually have barely spoken about it compared to how much time it has occupied and how many of my resources and how much of my money. It's a very, very difficult problem to stop, particularly given that the court seems to be corrupt. So let's look at what this social engineering cabal is getting into and what they're supporting, and you should decide for yourself if you want to support them. This is one of George's brother's ridiculous Twitter accounts that he makes to troll me. And so he posts here, Jason Goodman lost in court, and he's putting it on a Tracy Beans tweet, who is another lying, filthy, scumbag social engineer who they've boosted up to a social media celebrity, and now she appears on the high wire with Del Bigtree, who I've been very suspicious of for a long time. He's an Emmy winner. But anyway, he's telling you about how the case got dismissed. It's not the same as losing. It's definitely not a victory, but we see there are idiots like Gary who don't know what they're talking about, who say the irony is that the court determined his allegations are purely speculative, much like his content. Now, that's fine for Gary to say. That's not actionable. That's his asshole opinion. But it seems to me that Gary is not as tough as he thinks he is, because he knows if we were standing in Iraq and I was some subordinate private and he was the psychopath staff sergeant or whatever, he rattled off all of his credentials. He's also a Green Beret. Thank you for that bit of information, Gary. We're crowdsourcing the truth, even from dunces like you. You know who else was a Green Beret? Oh yeah, Ivan Raiklin, also a social engineer working for Michael Flynn. These guys are all traitors. They are all members of this military-industrial complex that they came to, that they proclaim to be wanting to fight and to inform you about. Now it's kind of raining a lot. Well, and so it's interesting to see Gary interacting with George's brother like that on Twitter. And see, they do it through Twitter so they can claim plausible deniability, but this is clearly a pattern because it's what George's brother has been doing for almost 8 years. And, you know, Gary, he's clearly a contractor, you know? You're telling me his tactical company, you can't call them up and say, oh yeah, we need security in Iraq, we need security here and there and whatever, and the kind of crap that Eric Prince and Blackwater are doing. That's the exact same thing that he's trying to replicate, to the extent that 21st Century 3D was trying to do what James Cameron was doing. It's a good analogy. It's much smaller scale, much less capable, but essentially the same thing. Both making 3D movies. Gary and Eric Prince both want to help you make war. They're psychopaths in my opinion. But anyway, there we see they're intermixing with George's brother, also a psychopath. And see, we can see their whole network of jackasses because there was this person, Gus Quixote. Now, I don't understand how I even see this person because I have him blocked. So I don't know why this is even showing up on my Twitter. But he says, oh man, I wonder if Jason, knows whatever he just said, if Jason's an idiot. And so, I mean, these guys are all rooting for the corrupt judges. Have people seen this pleading I've entered? This is my appeal in the Second Circuit, where I say this case represents a stunning, potentially unprecedented example of judicial corruption. And I go through chapter and verse, as Charles would say, laying out facts and evidence about how they collaborated, they conspired, according to my allegations, Adam Sharp and David Swigert. They conspired to deny me due process and a fair trial, and such an elaborate scheme could only be accomplished with the help of the judge. And then there's a quite dense document associated with those 2 pages, because I could only post 4 on Twitter, and if this moron Gus wants to go read about it, he can get on to Pacer. But the fact is, are they denying that the courts have been weaponized? What side are these idiots on? Again, I'm not telling you to not listen to Gus or to not, I don't know if he wants you subscribing to things or whatever. Go do whatever you want to do with Gus. But if you're going to listen to him, you should be aware of what I'm seeing right there. They're delighted that people are conspiring with judges, allegedly. They're delighted that Twitter's first U.S. government liaison, the former FBI general counsel, the Twitter deputy general counsel, they're all in communication with George's brother. George's brother emailed legal@twitter.com 10 days before I was attacked outside of Twitter by 4 of the people who are being sued in this lawsuit, and he has harassed all of the parties in the lawsuit throughout. This disgusting judge, when David, George's brother, sent a letter to the attorney for the police in the city, in which I was referenced as an effing Jew. He didn't redact the F word. I asked the judge to admonish this non-party not to interfere in the case. She refused to do it. In fact, she sent a snarky, bitchy judgment to me, like as if we're having an argument in the checkout line at Walmart, where she's like, okay, motion for reconsideration is granted, and now it's still denied. So, look, the judge has a lot of latitude. All she had to say is, whatever I was asking for in the motion is denied, and Mr. Swigert and other non-parties are admonished not to interfere, particularly with such vile rhetoric. That's all she had to say. But she didn't do it. And what she did right there, particularly this early in her moron DEI judge career, is she planted a flag firmly in her own bigotry, racism, and hatred. Judge Jessica G.L. Clark is a vile, disgusting, Jew-hating person who should not be a judge. This woman is not fit to be an umpire at a Little League softball game, let alone a judge in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. I think you'd have to go to Germany in 1933 to see this kind of official government level approval of that level of hateful rhetoric, particularly when it's brought to her attention twice. I am not going to let this go. This is going to be documented and sent to the House Judiciary Committee. Also keep in mind, for all the people who think I lost that case, that's a ruling that's going to be objected to, and not for the reason that George's brother is sending around letters about me with vile, hateful stuff in it. It's because the judge is too stupid to understand what's right in front of her. She thinks I'm alleging a First Amendment violation by the police because when I exercise the First Amendment by saying things like the judge is stupid, that's my opinion. But that's not the aspect of the First Amendment that I was talking about in Goodman versus the City of New York. I'm talking about the aspect of the First Amendment that allows you to redress grievances with the government. And the police are the government. When I went to the 10th precinct to file a report, only people from Europe would fill up the whole entire High Line and walk at a slow pace and refuse to get out of the way when they hear somebody talking behind them. That's a socialist use. Get the hell out of the way. Not you, kid. Anyway. The point of the matter is, the aspect of the First Amendment that I am talking about is that when I go to the police station to file a report about police misconduct, and the police tell me there was no assault, By the way, one of the very same officers who engaged in the misconduct tell me there is no evidence, there was no assault, I'm holding the evidence right in front of his face, and he threatens me to leave or I'm going to be sent to the hospital. That is a First Amendment violation by the police. And even if there's nothing else in this case, no matter the age, you shouldn't have a wheeled thing on the High Line. If that's the only thing in this case, it should not have been dismissed. So it's going to be objected to on that basis, and perhaps others as I look into it further. But of course, George's psychotic brother is sitting in some filthy RV smelling his own ass, although I think he's been moved to the family apartment in Orlando. That's where all of these letters are coming from. He sends me 2-3 letters a day. The guy is a psychopath. Right? Why would they do this, you know? And why did he go to Tracy Beans? Because Tracy Beans has been a social engineer from the very beginning. That's my opinion. You might disagree. I recommend you go to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. You don't even have to pay. This is totally free. You don't even have to subscribe. Just go there, tap on that content tab and type in Tracy. It'll bring up this phone call that I had with Tracy Beans, and you listen to it. And you form your own opinion, because, you know, there was a time when Tracy was saying a lot of the same things these other losers are saying. Jason is a liar, Jason is Mossad, Jason and George are doing X, Y, and Z. What else have they got here? There's a whole legion of Twitter morons who post crap. We already saw that. That's Gus. Here, let's look at this. So this is their big thing. So I think yesterday or today, George's brother says John Cullen will dump Jason soon. Now, it's clear that that's been on their agenda. This is an interesting account that responded, saying that it could be the other way around. It is disappointing that John doesn't realize the extent to which he's being manipulated by social engineers at times. But I also cannot tell John what to do. Oh, this is the account. This is a very interesting parody of a schizophrenic fascist traitor, paperclip Nazi dickface. So if people are interested in learning about that, there's all kinds of interesting information on X. But the point is, these guys have plans, and they have very indirect ways of executing them. I'm not always right about it, but I have become something of definitely a student. I don't know if we could say an expert, but I am very aware of a lot of their tactics, and I would even say so aware that it allows me to analyze their style, such that even when we see a new tactic that I've maybe never seen before, I'm pretty good at figuring out what it is that they're up to. So obviously separating John Cullen and I is something that I detected that they've wanted to do for a long, long time. How they've been going about doing that, that's interesting to observe. I won't get into the details here because that might give away, you know, sources and methods. But, you know, see, one of the things that really upsets this coalition that wants to dismantle Crowdsource the Truth is that I've really built a very decentralized and resilient platform, if that's the right word. See, when I first met George, I said, look, I don't really have any experience as a journalist. And the truth is, I really didn't even have any confidence that I could be the subject of a show like this. I was like, what do I know? And what do I know about journalism? And all these other people are doing this stuff. I don't presume that I could be better at it than them or that I know stuff that they don't know. I just felt like I'll stick to my key strength. And, you know, everybody knows the story. I approached George and said, hey, why don't we collaborate? You be the journalist, I'll be the video producer. And that was quite successful, but that was the moment where people like Tracy Beans and Kim.com and other people who have dropped out by now, and other people who are still there, and George's brother, that's when they got involved. Oh yeah, I ADD'd on this. I was going to talk about, what's his name? Pavel Durov. He created that VK.com. That's the thing. I was thinking that I'm not sure if Americans can join that anymore. I think when that war started, they made it so that you can't, like, fully, I think you can't, something that you need to do to set up an account there can't be done. anymore. But anyway, I have an account there that I was saving evidence on. See, all this stuff about George having sex with his own brother's wife, that came from George and Dave. They said that. So people are like, oh, you better make sure that's true. As far as I know it's true, why would they say it if it wasn't true? Even if it isn't true, they're going to have to reveal that now because they said it years ago. And they even said that I think that the ex-wife came onto a podcast and spoke about it. As far as I remember, they've definitely said it many times, and I've repeated it many times, and they haven't denied it. So if it's not true, why haven't they said that? And the point is, I talk about it because it is just so psychopathic and so the opposite of anything a normal person would do that I point to it to say, you know, this is not a normal disagreement with normal people. And a lot of people point out it's very Hunter Biden-like. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is this some sort of ritual indoctrination into something incredibly weird? I don't know. All I know is that's what they said. And look, I would rather never deal with or think about any of these morons. But to the extent that they insist on interacting with me, the first thing I did was I went to the cops. And I've been to the cops like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. I've been to a lot of different cops. I've been to the NYPD, I've been to the Philadelphia PD, I've been to the Detroit PD, I've been to the FBI. None of them will do anything because, in large part, the way this harassment and agitation and stalking is couched, it's done in the form of this civil litigation. So I don't believe that this is correct. I think if I had, agency and money and the ability to actually compel the cops to do what they're legally bound to do, I would say, no, that's not valid. This guy can't use an abusive process in civil court for the better part of a decade, and you guys just say, well, it's not harassment, you have to sort it out in civil court. And every judge that comes up in the civil court allows this guy to break the rules and act like a maniac. I mean, how is it not harassment to send around letters to people saying I'm an effing Jew and using the post office to do it? I even have an idiot friend from high school who became a cop in Indiana. I hope you're watching, idiot. I didn't say anything about this when you said this, but you were an idiot in high school and you still are. Ill-suited to be a law enforcement officer. This guy was breaking the law like crazy when we were in high school and has terrible judgment. But because he's a law enforcement officer in the state of Indiana, I contacted him when George's asshole brother was breaking the law in that state to try to sue me. And he, like every other useless cop today, went into a litany of excuses as to why he couldn't do anything. Well, I guarantee if George or his moron brother were doing this to my former friend's daughter, he would have figured out a way to make him stop. And then he, anyway, whatever it is, he just contributes. That guy hadn't spoken to him in 15 years or something like that. But we got into a conversation, and as soon as it turned to, are you able to do anything that actually involves enforcing the law? Of course, the answer was no. So he's a feckless, useless individual who also thinks he's a hero, like Gary. But Gary is a loser who revels in the corruption of our courts, revels in the notion that the people who created Twitter are working with the FBI, because Gary doesn't care about you. Gary doesn't care about the Constitution beyond the Second Amendment that allows him to own a gun, because all he wants to do is get hired to go shoot someone, and that's what's basically happened here. He is an internet mercenary, in my opinion, very similar to Christopher Bouzy and George. These guys all have different styles and different purposes, and Cullen did get into investigating this with J.J. Cooey and all of these medical people. Like when it turned to COVID, they needed lots of people who had expertise in medicine who were willing to be deceptive scumbags and lie, or could themselves be fooled into becoming sort of zombie social engineers. So just because I say you are a social engineer, it doesn't mean that you've been in a meeting where someone wrote you a check and gave you an agenda and told you, here's what you're going to go do. You might just be swallowing the Kool-Aid by continuing to refer to the shooting position on American Glass Research as crooks, because every piece of bullshit that you're investigating is designed to go nowhere but reinforce that false memory in people's heads, whether you're Chris Martenson or Gary or any of the social engineers that can't move off of the preconceived notion that even though there's been no investigation and the body was cremated within, I don't know, less than a week, it's definitely, absolutely gotta be this way, and anybody who's talking about anything else is wrong. I'm not saying that. Keep listening to those people. Keep paying for their subscription services. I'm not here to tell you to cancel something. That's what they're telling you to do to me. I think that should cause you to ask yourself why they would say that, because I personally believe the only logical explanation is that that is why they're here. Someone else is paying them. And by the way, isn't it interesting that some of these people have 1 million followers or whatever, and advertisements on their podcasts and all this stuff? They claim to be telling you the truth, but for whatever reason, YouTube and Google and all these things don't demonetize their platforms. Military swarms of lunatics don't get around them and try to intimidate every person who would come on their show and to try to smash this super resilient. The resilience is all these different platforms that people can sponsor the show with. See, when I started, everybody doing this that I was aware of was just making money from YouTube ads, and it was a shock to people when they started demonetizing them for talking about certain controversial topics on YouTube. Before I got here, that was never the case. So my first exposure was, you can't make any money on YouTube if you want to talk about controversial topics that idiots on the news think are conspiracy theories. So that was when I found out about Patreon. That was the first one. And then I added these other ones as they became available, and they have different features and capabilities, you know, so people can sponsor the show on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I prefer Subscribestar. It's a smaller company. See, the mistake that Patreon made is, in my opinion, they got a big round of investing from outside investors, and I don't really think it's the kind of company that needs that. These companies, with the exception of Odyssey, and I'll explain what I mean, they're essentially build your own website companies with a very simple template that you can't change that much, and credit card processors, and kind of like a membership list management database. And that's not to diminish that. That is something that I can't do without those services, or at least not easily. I tried to recreate it at the beginning of the pandemic and spent a lot of money, and then ran into a technical problem, and money overflows and servers became too expensive, and I started to realize why. You need to pay all these companies all this money to be able to do this show and have it be monetizable and have it be sustainable and all that. You know, there's still people who say, oh, you know, if you were a patriot, you would just put this all out on, you know, X is not going to censor it or whatever. But the point is, that is what the social engineers want me to do. Don't make any money, Jason. Just get sued and then go away. That's what they want. So if you like this show, if you like my reporting, it's super duper important that you become a sponsor. The reason why I say Odyssey isn't like the others is because Odyssey is also an extremely resilient video host. It's not just a make your own website page. And in fact, when you go there, you'll notice it's not so much a Crowdsource the Truth page in the way Subscribestar and Patreon and Substack are. It's more just like a channel. And there are videos that people can access for free, and there are videos that you have to become a member to access. But because it's all self-contained and owned by one company, that's not a big tech company that didn't take, you know, millions and millions of dollars and get a huge billion-dollar valuation that investors now need to recuperate money on. It's a startup, you know, scrappy kind of unique technology idea that uses decentralized as I understand it, technology similar to Napster or something like that, so that it is resistant to censorship laws from various countries. And it's an extremely clever idea. It's got a great search engine on there, and so many things about it work really well. And when I told them I wanted to make subscriptions more accessible to more people, they worked out a deal with me where for only $3 a month, plus a 58-cent fee for Odyssey, you get access to all the same member benefits and sponsor exclusive videos that anybody subscribing gets. So I really do encourage people to check out Odyssey, and they've also been threatened by George's brother, and each of these companies have, and each of them have been brave in standing up to him. So now we're lost in one of these little pedestrian, this is a wonderful spot for, you know, killers to lurk. So there we go. Lots of construction going on. I wonder if this is just going to be more migrant housing next to the kettle boiled bagel place. But yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know about all this stuff. We'll have to speak to the manager of the hotel there on Monday, I guess. Oh, it's going to be closed on Monday. Yeah, happy Labor Day to everybody. See, all these people who are like, oh, get your camera off of me. It's like, you realize you're on every friggin' camera. I mean, every inch you walk, there's another camera. It's just people want to start fights. It's craziness. Now, let's just check on one other thing before we wrap this up, because when I started the show, I guess yesterday, you know, the one where I first went over the hotel, she said, look at this, look at this. So that's what I'm saying. It's almost like these people have come from the shelters and they have elements like blankets and new shirts and things that are anomalous for your typical New York City homeless people. And I mean, I'm not saying that the homeless issue in New York was good the way it was, but it was sort of normalized. I think a lot of people, or at least from the just walking around on streets perspective, it seemed like it had just settled at a level where, you know, people have frequently said that a lot of the homeless people don't want to go to wherever it is, you know, a shelter or something like that, for all the reasons that we've heard. But there's just many, many, many more. Now I can see already he's gone. That guy's gone. But when I left this morning, he was there. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope this was interesting to people. Definitely, you know, go ahead and watch any of these social engineers that you want to watch, but I hope you'll keep the things that I've said in mind. You might even notice something that I haven't seen now that I've said this, and you might send me a message. This has happened many times. Oh, I used to listen to this person or that, and I hated you for saying this, but then they did this other thing over here. Look at that. It confirms what you're saying. That's happened many times, whether it's Flynn, George, Tracy Beans, any of these people that I'm talking about. I don't just come out and flippantly say this or that person is a social engineer. It usually takes a long time of doing something and resisting me saying, hey, maybe you don't want to do that. But whatever. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks to everyone who is sponsoring the show. And don't forget, tonight, I'll be on with Charles. You can catch us at 8 p.m. on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Yeah, that guy's moved in over there with his toilet paper roll and everything, but I guess he's at work now. Have a